Welcome to Ecogradia, where we meet experts and practitioners at the front lines of sustainable architecture and urbanism. My name is Nirmal Krishnani. I'm a sustainable design strategist, author, and educator based in Singapore. Today is the fifth webinar in a limited series organized in collaboration with the Holcim Foundation for Sustainable Construction. This series provides a unique opportunity to peek into the projects that came up on top in the Holcim Awards 2023, which ended in Venice last November. With each webinar, we get to hear from two award winners about the making of their winning entries and find out how sustainability is pursued in their part of the world. Today, I'm joined by two representatives of the teams at the helm of the winning entries for the Middle East and Africa regions. Juergen Strohmayer is an architect with DeRoché Strohmayer in Ghana. He will be talking about the Surf Ghana Collective, which received the Gold Award and is conceived as a community space for local youth. Akel is an architect and the founder of Akel Architects in Lebanon. He will talk us through the Kfar Houneh Ecolodge in Lebanon, which received the Bronze Award and is designed to be an eco-friendly tourist accommodation. This webinar series is sponsored by the Holcim Foundation for Sustainable Construction. The foundation was created in 2003 to empower a community of future makers through the transfer of ideas, knowledge, and real-world solutions. The Holcim Foundation today delivers on all these fronts with a treasure trove of information on its website. You can find all past winners of the Holcim Awards from all over the world and discover the strategies they followed on their journey towards sustainability. Go to holcimfoundation.org to find out more. Juergen, Akel, it's a great pleasure to meet you. Now, let me start by quoting the chair of the Holcim Awards for Middle East and Africa, Leslie Loco, who I met in Venice at the Holcim Awards ceremony. She said that sustainability in this part of the world, in your part of the world, is often framed as a question of use, tradition, and relationship to environment. Here, small interventions can be powerful. And a building can transform its neighborhood socially, economically, ecologically. From the jury panel, here are comments about your project, Juergen. The jurors were profoundly impressed by the way the project's scale, although very modest in size, succeeds in impacting the community, especially the lives of local youth. They found the proposal to be a remarkable example of achieving significant outcomes with minimal resources, showcasing inventive design. Akel, regarding your project, the jury panel had this to say. Within a region of political instability, the project embodiment of resilience and community spirit was highly commended. The significance of this construction initiative was considered truly remarkable, also because it plays a pivotal role in preserving history and place, aligning with the cultural values deeply ingrained within the people of Lebanon. Now, before we start in earnest, please, could you walk me through your respective projects? Let's start with you, Juergen.
Thank you. The Surf Ghana Collective is the first and only dedicated community surf lodge in Busua in the western region of Ghana. The surf lodge plugs into a network of other lodges and surf schools in the region and locally in this fishing village. Surf Ghana Collective's aim is to create new and more opportunities for local youth, and we were able to work together with the collective on making this happen and creating the physical infrastructure for this. It is an adaptive reuse project that replaced the existing leaking roof with a plug-in, so to say, that also maximized and increased the area available to the collaborative. The plugin was cast out of a low-carbon cementitious concrete mix design, and all existing structures was also repaired and rendered with this innovative material. The Surf Ghana Collective is really an intense project on a minimal footprint, radiating out through the community, creating spaces around its perimeter, within and on top, to be used by the youth of Busua. And it's really been an exciting journey for us, as we're also able to bring these innovations that we were developing also back into the urban spaces of Ghana. And we look forward to sharing more of that with you now.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Juergen. Would you summarize your project, please, Akel?
The Ecolodge is located in Kfar Houneh. Kfar Houneh is a village that's 40 to 60 minutes from Beirut. It has an altitude of 1,000 meters above sea level, and practically moderate temperature climate all year long. Kfar Houneh lately was considered as an unstable and unsafe place because it's located next to the border with Israel. Kfar Houneh is mainly known for its natural rocks that are existing on the site and for its rich biodiversity in fauna and flora. And we can see this in the village, which is mainly constituted of one main road where you have all the fabric, and 80% of the village is made of wide greeneries and agricultural fields. The plot is located in these areas, so it's on a hiking trail. The idea behind this project was in the idea of an agricultural engineer who had a vision to showcase the biodiversity in his native village and to combine it with an agro industry that could create a closed cycle where you can plant and then you can eat whatever you plant. Kfar Houneh Ecolodge, so it's a mix between an ecolodge that should immerse the visitor into an experience with nature blended to an agro-industry that serves whatever is planted there.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Akil.
Thank you.
Let's go back to the words of Leslie here. Projects of this region celebrate use, tradition, and relationship to environment. Now, if you do these well, small can be powerful. Both your projects are, of course, very small in size, but you have big ambitions. I want to talk a little bit about these ambitions. Juergen, what are the big ambitions of Surf Ghana Collective?
Yes, Surf Ghana Collective started off as a community building platform, and it required a space. So there was no dedicated space for the local surfers, youth that surf locally that might not be employed in a traditional sense. So Surf Ghana Collective creates opportunities, and we were able to create the infrastructure, so to say, with this building. The building that we built that was built was also an adaptive reuse project, so not coming in with something completely new, but also looking and understanding what there is already and making the most out of it. So we decided that this roof was the main topic that needed to be addressed. There was an existing room that we could make use of. So the project developed from those programmatic and then also urbanistic ideas, and also these ideas of what actually is needed to create this adequate, functional, but also iconic space for the youth of Busua.
I mean, every project to a degree seeks to influence the neighborhood. But in your report, you talked about even a bigger canvas than that, right? Something a wider trend in Ghana. And you talked about reducing the current rate of depopulation of talent from Ghana's western region. Could you tell me a little bit about that? Well, first of all, what is happening, and how do projects like the Surf Collective make a difference?
Yes, so over the span of more than a decade, we've been seeing, I've been personally working on research and projects throughout coastal Ghana that really tell that story that you're highlighting of the depopulation of rural areas, lack of opportunities in smaller villages, and people moving to the larger cities. That trend is also there in Busua. And Surf Ghana Collective, which is an entity, an organization that is using sports, in particular surfing in this case, to create these opportunities for young people. There are, over the last year, coaching and surfing workshops on a very high professional international level taking place now in this structure that we were able to build. There are small things like swimming lessons for younger children. So there's a lot of work, community work, and capacity building in a way happening now, which has ripple-on effects far beyond the 55 square meters of this building. It has an economic effect. It has a personal effect for the people that are able to make use of the space.
Has surfing in Ghana become part of an international circuit now? Has it become a place for surfers to go to? I'm not a surfer, so I'm curious as to whether or not this is now an emerging hotspot for surfing.
So I think it has been on people's radar for a while. It has the right conditions. It is now becoming emerging and becoming a much stronger hotspot for surfing. So there are international surf competitions and so on that are coming here. People are being attracted to it, both tourists but also local professionals.
Kfar Houneh, the Ecolodge, Akil, you talk about economy, environment, cultural heritage. That's a big canvas. Tell me about the big ambitions here.
In order to understand the situation, I just want to do an overview about the situation in Lebanon. Lebanon has, on a national scale, let's say, has passed lately during the 30 years maybe, and even more, has lived through different wars. That's one. It has then lived financial crisis that led to its national currency's devaluation. And it had a major impact on the economy and on the Lebanese society. And then came COVID. And after COVID came the 4th of August explosion, which completely destroyed whatever was left in the city of Beirut. So all these elements had a direct impact on the project, since after the crisis, the economical crisis, new fields and new jobs have been created locally, such as jobs related to artisanal industries, agro-industries, small-scale projects, and mainly after COVID, humans became closer to nature. They started avoiding people. So you can see that there's a lot of fields related to external activities, hiking trails, etc., that started to pop up everywhere in the country. I think that on a national scale, the Ecolodge is mainly a response to the need of creating a field that's completely related to internal tourism, since there is no more money in order to travel outside of Lebanon. So internal tourism became attractive to people and to investors. And the agro-industry that's really related to a village and to the plantations in a village, and that's locally has a small scale. So the Ecolodge is mainly an answer for all these at a national level and on the local level of Kfar Houneh. So, and knowing the fact that the Ecolodge is located on a trail that passes through different monuments in the area, such as an ancient windmill that was built in 1890, and an old monastery that was built in the 18th century, 1850, I think. And lots of wild greeneries and plantation fields, and where you have really a corridor of wild animals passing through the site, with birds and all the species that you can see in an area that was completely deserted during war and was kept as it is.
Right.
So
I think it's interesting, the parallel between the two projects, and it hadn't occurred to me earlier, was that in both projects there is this kind of implicit desire to be close to nature, albeit in different ways, and that the projects are really leveraging on a universal need to be in close proximity to nature, whether through tourism or through sports. But talk me through the process. How did these ambitions translate into a brief and targets? I mean, many designers, would typically start by looking at a site as a set of physical conditions, right? But in your context, in your project, how is this idea of context defined? I mean, how did you set about understanding the wider canvas of networks and interactions. Juergen?
Yes, so my partner, Glenn DeRoché, and I, we have our practice in Accra, Ghana, and it's about 5 to 6 hours distance from Busua. And Surf Ghana Collective, which is headed by Sandy Alibo, was also active in Accra. And it's a bustling city. There's a creative and activist community, and we are part of it. So through that, we interacted with the Surf Ghana Collective already. We had also visited Western Ghana many times, and then this opportunity to collaborate came up. So through a series of events that took place in Busua, including beach cleanup exercises, weekend events when parties were happening, film screenings, and so on were organized, there was a sort of incremental getting closer to a brief and also a design. So in this interaction, in this engagement, and also living in Busua and having fun, and also seeing what is needed, how the day happens, through that we developed the brief and design together. So it was really a series of interactions that played out through time, rather than this linear idea of a brief and the reaction, a design.
Right.
It was much more interactive.
But did you have a client, or was this a kind of? I mean, I know you used the word collective. Was there a nominal client?
Yes. So the client, the entity that commissioned us to do the design is also called the Surf Ghana Collective, or it's called Surf Ghana, and they work. They also work through skating, for example, in cities. In Busa, through surfing, to create these opportunities through sports for youth.
Right. Akhil.
Yeah.
Talk me through the brief and the aspirations of the project. I mean, how, we talked about the big ambitions. How did that translate into a program and a brief? And how did this get converted into something that you could act upon?
Okay. So as I said before, the project of the Ecolodge is closely related to its context. So when I talk about the characteristics of the context, we can talk about many characteristics on different sides, on different levels. First, there's the ecological, let's say, actors in the scenery, which were the birds, the fauna, the flora, the animals, the wild animals, and everything that is living there. So what we had the intervention, and we tightly collaborated with an environmental science and management expert, which whom he came and we visited the site together, and we did a biodiversity inventory in order to see what's living there and how we could implant the buildings without creating a visual pollution, while being on the scale of the village and not to be considered as an intruder in the scenery. And then we worked together with the expert, with the management expert and the environmental engineer on systems that could be used later, measures that could be used in order to protect the environment and to be able not to pollute the environment during construction and during operation. And plus we had the intervention of our mechanical engineer, who is a LEED certificate, who did a study on the systems that we can use in order to have the self-efficiency, and in order to be sustainable, and to consider whatever we can use in the site without polluting it. So mainly, I don't know if I've answered the question. It's mainly located to characteristics that are used on site. Then we can go into the natural elements that we can find, like the rocks that we used in our architecture, the woodworks that's locally sourced in the area, and especially the workmanship that comes from the village. And so I think that it was conceived in a way that it would be really like a closed circle. Everyone works with, everybody knows everybody. So it's a project where all the inhabitants of Kfar Houneh were really involved in, hopefully.
Gosh, I mean, that is a very interesting take on the design process, and I wonder if you could elaborate on this, like exactly how many people were involved and how many experts did you bring to the table?
We had one expert, which is the cousin of the owner. He's an expert in the United Nations. He got really excited about the project. So we did researches on what's existing there. We asked old people in the area what are the animals that come, and what are the species that exist on the ground, and the plantations and everything related to nature. And you can see when you go there are lots of agricultural fields that are already planted and that have been planted hundreds of years ago. So we kept the same identity, let's say, and the same system that were used before. There was a water tank that's existing on the highest point of the plot. We kept it, we enlarged it, and we made water go down through the agricultural field by gravity. Lots of things, really small interventions related to seating areas beneath existing olive trees, combining architecture into existing ruins.
I hear what you're saying, that sometimes when you are thinking about a project from a sustainability perspective, very often the brief enlarges. You start off with a kind of almost a mundane description of what the building needs to be or do, and then suddenly the canvas grows bigger and bigger, and you begin to realize the interconnectivity of all the systems that are affected by this intervention. Juergen, Talk to me about the design process. I mean, what did you do in this process that would not be done in a conventional project?
I think the amount of care and time and dialogue that happened throughout not only the design but throughout until now, until construction and maintenance, that's really special and valuable. I think we, as architects, we also need to appreciate this in the people that are using it and our, so to say, clients. That there is this interest in also coming to us and asking how do you think you can contribute to this ambition? And I think that is really unique, and we try to, that's always an ambition for every project, I think, in our office, but in the Surf Ghana Collective, it was very present. The fact that up to today, the electrician is also, using the space now. The people that were employed as part of the contractors team were also now using the space. So it was really this it's similar to what Akil mentioned, this sort of intense interaction, and also through time, from inception, construction to use between all of the stakeholders of the project. So we still go back and we are in dialogue right now about maintenance, things that need to be updated, enlarged, or so on. All of these steps are really part of this process, and it may be much more that may be more restricted in other projects.
I mean, the thing that strikes me is it completely redefines the role of the architect, does it not? I mean, we go through architecture school and I teach, so I know there is this idea of a client and a brief and a kind of a deliverable and performance and so on. But this is a level of engagement that is very different. But let me ask you then, what does the architecture do, right? In the scheme of this socio-ecological canvas that you are trying to enter and reshape, what is the role of the building? What does the building do? Akil?
So what's the role of architecture? I think that architecture should be present and not present at the same time. In such projects, there are measures and strategies that could be taken that could be either passive strategy or technicalities and measures related to problem solvings. If we, in the case of Kfar Houneh Ecolodge, the passive strategy we took in the project was mainly, it started with the fragmentation. We didn't want a big mass to be on site that could be considered as an intruder there, or could have a scale different than the scale of what's existing there. So we fragmented the building, and we scattered the components into the corners of the plot while maintaining the center as a green field for plantation. And then I will talk about one thing that's really contextual to this project. So before I start talking about it, I just want to explain what are the passive strategies that we adopted. So fragmentation, we started by fragmenting the volumes. We started by taking what the site told us. We integrated our architecture to the elements that were existing on site. So the operational part, which is the agro-industry, the retail, the workers' camp, and a small external interior space that serves as a public space for retail, for the inhabitants of Kfar Houneh who come and they can really showcase whatever they're doing. All this part was mainly implanted on the highest point where you have the maximum number of people coming and going, where you have the water tank that's, like I said before, on the highest point in order to have the water goes down by gravity. And then we have the part that's completely composed of the retreat with 10 units completely scattered, and the choice of implanting them in the corridor of the wild greenery was a choice in order to have an immersive experience with nature and with the wild animals that come on the plot. And on the other part of the plot, there is an existing ruin, existing ruins that we integrated these walls into a recreational area, a leisure area, a component where you can have the pool and a restaurant that can be completely open to outcomers or to visitors. So the project is mainly linked to its context due to what's existing on site. This is the passive strategy. Other than that, we used local materials, local stone, which the system that's used for the architecture, for the structure, is an exoskeleton made of concrete and an outer shell that completely is made of stone that completely protects the internal spaces from the outer conditions. We have natural fireplaces that are the only thing that heats inside the units. We have an architecture made of crossing ventilations, patios that different elements that combined together create this passive strategy, right, and our approach towards this kind of projects. And right, next to it comes everything related to the technical measurements that were used in the project in order to get its sustainability and its self-efficiency in terms of power and water and waste, etc.
Right. No, it's interesting you talk about the approach to architecture as being, present and not present. Right. I love that phrase. And I think it's very telling that when we begin to look at architecture as something other than the product of ego or style or, even performative thinking, I think certification is a way of kind of screaming to the world, this is what I'm doing, But when you start to look at a building in its context, it kind of disappears. And the most sustainable buildings are the ones that kind of blend into the world that they inhabit, enhancing it at the same time. What I thought was very interesting, Juergen, about your project, the Surf Ghana Collective, was that the building as a function, as a program, seemed almost secondary to what it was doing to the community, for the social spaces around it. Could you talk me through a little bit about what the architecture set out to do in response to the ambition that you had for this development?
Yes, I think I can also tie it into the previous conversation about the role of the architect, or what we can contribute. I think Akil made all these points which are so important about all this technical and like these strategies that we can apply, we learn, and bring to projects, because honestly they're usually not applied and they're so valuable, especially now that we're looking at climate change. We're all working in difficult climates, or climates that need to be addressed. I think another important aspect that we bring as architects is imagination and also foresight. And I think that touches on things like identity. It touches on things like what does a building represent or mean to a community, and how does that look like? So in our case, we did understand this to be a bit of an icon on the beach, because it is that building for the young people of Busua. It's at the same time, we like to also, interlink that kind of concept with a functional, or with this sort of necessary aspect of the roof. So in our case, this plugin that was inserted is this new roof that creates more space, space that wasn't there before. It also adds this double ceiling layer that allows cross ventilation in between, one of the passive strategies that Akil also touched on, and cross ventilation with the breeze blocks in the back and these large doors that you can slide open, so that now you've got wind going from the ocean through the building and back out again in the backyard. So I think what we usually try to do, and what is also visible in Surf Ghana Collective, is this sort of merging, the synthesis of visual storytelling, spatial storytelling that touches people, but at the same time also really works very hard to be as welcoming and comfortable and useful for the people that are there as possible.
No, I'm struck by one thing in both your projects, which, as I was reading through the reports, I realized there was a lot said about what happens outside or adjacent to these buildings. The roof, the patios that you've created, the integration with the trees. It's almost as if the thing that you're creating is a space between the buildings. In a way, okay. There's an interior, and there is activity, and there is a functionality to this. Whether it's rooms for hotel resort guests, or activities for lodgers, but really it's that space between the structures that becomes the thing of invention, right? Would that be fair, Juergen? I mean, I keep reading about the overhanging canopy roof, the integration with trees. The interior seems almost a means to an end.
Yes. So where the building starts and ends is, I think, up for debate. And
right.
I think we've really tried to push the limits here with how far the building, extends into the community and into the surrounding. There are the steps that lead to the beach, which can also be used as sitting steps, and they're now a big social scene, a social space. There is the overhang, which creates, it protects from shade and sun, and it extends from the front, but also to the back of the building, where you've got a more functional backyard that has a shower for surfers to use, people to clean their surfboards and their equipment, and a toilet. So where our building, begins and ends is really not so clear. I mean, also these large doors, when they're open, it's all one space. You go from inside to outside, and then back to inside and to outside. So that is also really connecting our project to how living happens around this project. So outdoor living makes a lot of sense in the climate. The climate facilitates that, and it doesn't make sense to enclose a space. It would be a heat trap. It would be
Right.
very uncomfortable and also uninteresting. I think opening up the space as much as possible in this case was our response to the site and to the brief. Yeah.
In Kfar Houneh, is it clear where the building begins and where the building ends?
I think that you're asking the wrong question. Is there really a building? This is the question that should be asked, maybe, because every time that I try to explain Kfar Houneh Ecolodge, I don't know. I feel angry when I talk about a building, because I didn't want to create a building there.
Right.
Because the project is fragmented and it's really composed on different elements that all interact together, while having a big void, let's say, in the front, which is really should be respected in this scenery that's completely poetic. I think that architecture should really disappear and be part of the context without even being seen. When I got the award on this project, I didn't really. It was unpredictable. It was the only project really where I worked even without even doing architecture. I followed just what the site told me to do, and that's a thing that I love in the project of Juergen, where you see the project and you search for the architecture. You don't find it. You find that really it's as if it was made by a human and not an architect, and that's what's nice in it. Yeah, there's a sense of poetry and integration to the site, to the water. I really love your project. So it's a small intervention.
Thanks. I mean, it's much reciprocated. Yes.
Really.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And it goes back to the first question that I asked about what is then the role of the architect. And I think what your two respective projects are showing us is that architecture becomes a relational object rather than a artifact, that the building exists. Make no mistake about it, it exists. But it exists to serve a set of relationships rather than to be an object to be admired. And I think this is the big shift that we are seeing in a lot of conversations about sustainability, that it is a relational object. It enters a set of relationships that pre-existed it. And it either seeks to enhance or reinforce them or to generate these relationships in both your cases. But can I ask you then, how would you assess success in your project?
Success, I think success can be defined on four levels: on a social level, on an economic level, on an ecological level, and on a cultural level. Socially, this project could be a hub for the people. Two kinds of people, let's say, the newcomers that go on a hiking trail and they could come and visit the site, or the people who have left their village when there was war 20 or 30 years ago and who could come back again, and when they see that there are new projects that are being built in the area. This is on a social aspect. And then comes the space that we created in the middle of the project, that's mainly dedicated to inhabitants of Kfar Houneh, in order to they come and sell their products there. This is on the social level. On an economical level, it's the creation of new jobs during construction and later, after construction, and it's related to the bills that really the owner will have to pay, that are really not high, and could could make from his project a profitable project. The ecological and the environmental aspect, the success can be found when you create a self-efficient project that doesn't pollute and that doesn't be a source of pollution for nature. I think it's a plus ecologically and environmentally and culturally. Since the project could be, it could give awareness to other projects, and it can be a behavior change aspect to the protection of the environment in Kfar Houneh and later maybe in all Lebanon. So I think that these kinds of projects, the acupuncture projects, they have a role on all levels. Even if they're small, they can they can transform the way the people live in the area in different ways, even if it's a project that could maybe create 10 or 3 jobs or 4 jobs. It's always a plus in an area that would happen, that could help the project really be a point of attraction to visitors.
Right. Juergen, I'm going to quote something in your report, and I'm going to ask you how well it's turned out. So you talk about the surf house as organically encouraging collaboration, independence, and entrepreneurship. It's been open for a year. Has any of this happened yet?
Yes, it has. There have been multiple workshops that have trained young people to become professional instructors. So that has allowed them to open their own and really improve their own businesses. So their surf schools, for example, or also to start competing in international competitions. So that really has created an opportunity for young people that is also connected to their home, the village of Busua. Independence, the same thing. So I think creating a place that also, it's much more than just a surf lodge. Actually, it's also it's the only place that offers stable Wi-Fi to the community, and so you will find kids doing their homework there after school. You'll find people hanging out on the steps in front of the surf lodge, making use of the library that is there. So it has a lot of options and amenities plugged into it that really allow people to self-develop, build their independence, their entrepreneurship, and all of that has been very visible. And it's Surf Ghana Collective's hard work and everybody there that is making this happening. And the building really then is just the sort of the vessel or the shelter for all of that to take place.
Looking back, is there something you would have done differently, Akil?
Oh, tough question. Something that I would have done differently. Frankly, I think that the project, the way it was conceived, is really answers the needs that really are in the village of Kfar Houneh. I don't know. I think that in terms of ecology, self-sustainability, self-efficiency, the project could meet high requirements of self-efficiency, knowing that we are in a country where you have 300 days per year of sun, so we can use the sun wherever we want, and it's a fact that we have in Lebanon, since we cannot rely on the grid, on the national grid, and on the electricity coming from the state. So we are all self-efficient and sustainable in a way, if we don't take the batteries into consideration. So talking about the waste, it answers all the needs. We have the compost system that could be used as fertilizers. We have the water treatment waste that It could be used in irrigation. We have the power that's already built internally. I think that the project is somehow a good prototype that could be really inserted maybe everywhere in the wild greeneries, because it has characteristics of self-efficiency and a really immersive experience with nature. You open the windows and you sleep really next to the animals maybe. So I don't know, it's a tough question. I don't know, I would like to hear Juergen.
Juergen, you had more time to think about this. What would you have done differently?
Well, to me, it sounds like we both were quite hands-on, perhaps, in these projects. It sounds like there was a lot of on-site presence or connection to how things are made. And in that case, it was a process to build this. And in our case, we did we developed new finishes, new ways of casting concrete. All of that took development, and it also took courage. And we were very happy for Surf Ghana Collective to go that journey with us. So, there were ups and downs in that process. The result, I think, works well for everyone. And so it keeps on going. So things that didn't work out were corrected in the time. Like on any construction site, in any journey. I think at the moment, we're all in a good place with the project.
I have one last question. What are the ripple effects of your projects? I mean, we talked about this being greater than its size, right? Obviously, you do a lot for the occupants and the immediate community, the neighborhood, potentially even the region in which the project is located. But is there a ripple effect of the project? Is it imitated by others? Has it changed the conversation in your part of the world in any way that you have noticed? Juergen?
Yes, both in the immediate surroundings, how you can point at the different passive strategies in the building, and that is starting conversations in the village itself, and may improve some buildings there, but also our own practice where we've been taking some of the technologies developed in Busua further, pushing the limits, and then maybe even they morph into something else. So and also, of course, the platform that Holcim has provided through the award has been very helpful in also showing to local clients here that this is appreciated on a global level. That has been, I think, also one of the points where this has had a ripple-on effect, and this might affect our work, but it might also affect the next architect that is working with these clients, because they might become more demanding or want these kind of sustainability strategies in their project as well.
I think that is the very definition of acupuncture, that it has this kind of, extended effect across systemic levels. Akhil, what have been the ripple effects from your project?
The project should have started in the beginning of 2024, but sadly, what we saw in Gaza and what happened in the area, the client he put the project on hold until he knows what will happen in the area. But now he started the process before the beginning of 2024. He created his brand, Houneh brand, that's mainly responsible of all the experimentation he's doing in the varieties he's planting there. He started planting his fields. And his neighbors also started planting their fields, and they called me and asked me if I could know an investor who could be interested in taking the project too, and if the project could be expandable. All these factors, we are still waiting. We want to see what's going to happen in the area. Now, the fact that, like Juergen said, we got an international recognition and an award, this really urged gave a push to the client and to the people in Kfar Houneh. So they keep asking about the project. Now, because it's not built, it doesn't have the ripple effect. But the ripple effect maybe comes from my side and the team who has worked on the project. All this team who went into this beautiful adventure, marvelous adventure with nature. So now I think that even if we don't think about it, there will always be a part of sustainability inside of us. And inside every project that we're going to create, we always try to find how can we use what's there, how can we conceive in a context that has its own, features, its own characteristics, its own. So mainly, I think until now, this is the only ripple effect that the project has, and I hope that someday it will be built and we could all go and really visit what the biodiversity there is in the area there.
Thank you, Akil. I greatly enjoyed talking to both of you, Juergen, Akil. Thank you for your time. It's been a great pleasure. A big thank you to the sponsor of this series, the Holcim Foundation for Sustainable Construction. The foundation is a leading organization whose sole mission is to promote new ways of thinking and acting in the design construction sector globally. Their goal is to give you the resources you need to craft your own journey and make that journey a little easier. To learn more about the winning projects discussed in today's webinar, plus who else will be featured in this series, go to holcimfoundation.org. Thanks, everyone. Until next time, this is Nirmal Krishnani signing off in Singapore.